Hello everyone, it is I, the Witch of Paint, and this week I bring you a painting of two fairies that will represent the zodiac sign Gemini. The zodiac goes on from about the 21st of May until the 21st of June, at least according to Google. It is represented by the twins, which is why in German we call this sign Zwillinge, and why I am painting two fairies today instead of one. And I do try to make them look as alike as I can, because twins. You know. As a base for the pose, I also decided to use the constellation itself as a guideline, though you cannot imagine how much trouble that gave me, because this painting that you are seeing now is my second attempt at this, and thankfully this one turned out alright. The first one did not, really. The arms were very wonky in that first one. The second one is better. A lot better. Gemini is an air zodiac sign, which is why I have decided to draw these two in the air above the clouds with the pretty sky behind them. Though at this point in time I haven't really decided on the sky itself. Now, while I sketch these two, how about we take a look at the myth behind the twins in the sky? Small trigger warning here, this is Greek mythology, and like many myths and legends humans tell each other, this one may get a little iffy, you know, a little triggery. You have been warned. The twins in the sky are called Castor and Pollux, but for the sake of making things easier for myself, I shall use Pollux' Latin name, Pollux, because it is easier for me to pronounce. Despite the fact that they were identical twins and shared the same mother, obviously, they have two different fathers, at least in the more common version of the story. Don't ask me how Zeus did it, because I have no idea how Leda, Queen of Sparta, who is the mother of these two, has managed to get twins with only Castor having her husband, King Tyndareus, as his dad, while Pollux is the son of Zeus, and yet they are identical twins. At this point, we might just have to accept the weird here. There are other sources who would say that they are both the son of Tyndareus or both the son of Zeus. But regardless of that, if there's only ever one of them that's not mortal completely, it's always going to be Pollux who has Zeus as his dad. Together, Castor and Pollux are sometimes known as the Dioscuri, which confused me a bit at first because the first article that I read just randomly started calling them that and didn't explain. But now you guys know, in case you do end up reading those. Anyways, apparently when Zeus seduced Leda in the form of a swan, that same encounter apparently also led to Helen of Troy being born. So Helen is also the sister of Castor and Pollux, and there is even some mention where maybe they died during the Trojan War or something. But we're not at the point of their death yet. We're still at the whole being born thing. So we've got Leda and her twin boys. Now, the wife of Tyndareus' half-brother, family relations, so confusing, but she also gave birth to twin boys, Idas, who was supposedly the son of Poseidon, and Lynceus, who was just a regular mortal like Castor in this kind of scenario. So one of these days, Castor and Pollux decide to kidnap the two women who had been promised to their cousins, Idas and Lynceus, and had sons with them. Ow! Really following into Zeus's footsteps here, aren't they? Lovely. Understandably though, this caused a feud between the two sets of twins. You don't just kidnap women to have kids, guys, especially not if they're, engaged to your cousins. However, eventually they did get over their feud when they were all taken upon Jason's voyage to find the Golden Fleece. If you remember or have watched these videos a few times, that's the Fleece of the Golden Ram from my Arias video. I'll link the playlist of my Zodiac Fairies down below for you guys to check out. So, at some point on the voyage with Jason and the Argonauts to find the Golden Fleece, Castor, Pollux, Idas and Lynceus decide to leave their feud behind and steal some cattle together. As one does. That's great. Great bonding idea, guys. These guys are truly criminal. There's a few different stories regarding how their feud was restarted, because nothing in Greek mythology agrees with each other. Either Ida stole the Dioscuri's fair share of cattle and they stole them back, causing a fight to break out. Ida kills Castor, Pollux in turn killed Lynceus, being badly wounded in the process, but before Ida can kill Pollux, Zeus shows up and kills Ida. So in the end, only Pollux survives, and that's usually how it goes. That he's the only one who always survives, and then he chooses to share his immortality with his brother Castor because he loves his brother so much. Not so much as cousins, apparently. There's other stories, like how I mentioned Helen earlier, how there was a moment where she mentioned that she couldn't see her brothers in the battlefield, so sometimes they just died in battle or in a raid or something. But usually Pollux survives all of these. Perks of being the son of the king of the gods, I suppose. Also, how come that Lynceus doesn't survive if he's the son of Poseidon? Like, who's also a god? Also, didn't Pollux also kidnap 2 women with his brother? Why does he get special treatment here, guys? All because he's the son of Zeus? Well, I suppose back in the day things worked differently, and this is just a story after all. In either case, Pollux really wanted to be with his brother and told Zeus, "Look, if I'm going to accept this gift of immortality, I want my brother to have it as well. So share my immortality with him." And Zeus allowed this, oh how merciful, and they got to split their time under the heavens and the earth together forever, and Zeus created the constellation of the twins in the sky in order to honor them, possibly because they were just as good at kidnapping and stealing as him. Now, to get away from the questionable stuff in the mythology, Castor and Pollux are both also sometimes associated with something called Saint Elmo's fire, which may also just be called Witch's fire. At least that's what we call it today. Now, what is this Saint Elmo's fire, you ask? I'm not a meteorologist, but it is a weather phenomenon. Essentially, something like luminous plasma is created by corona discharge around rod-like objects, like, say, a mast of a ship. An easier way of saying this, I suppose, it kind of looks like lightning is coming off of a mast. I think I've left a link to a Wikipedia article explaining this way better than I could, because I am not a meteorologist. I just found that and thought, okay, that's kind of neat. Both of the twins were also regarded as helpers of mankind and patrons of travellers and sailors. Mostly sailors, like sailors in particular. And their role as horsemen and boxers also made them patrons of athletes and athletic competitions. So I suppose in a way they are both kind of minor gods, especially since they both kind of got immortality gifts, so kind of makes sense that they would be worshipped as small gods. Castor and Pollux also rescued their sister Helen after she was kidnapped by Theseus. But, of course, they couldn't simply just rescue Helen. Obviously, they also had to kidnap Theseus' mother Aethra and make her Helen's slave back home. But after the fall of Troy, Aethra was returned to her home by her 2 grandsons, Demophon and Acamas, so in a way, I suppose she gets a sort of happy ending. She gets to go back home after that home is, kind of just slightly destroyed. Moving on from Greek mythology, in Babylonian astrology, the twins were known as the Great Twins and considered minor gods, so kind of like Castor and Pollux. In general, these twins seem to be getting the godly treatment, huh? And these minor gods for the Babylonians were called Meshlamtaia and Lugalira. Meshlamtaia meaning the one who has arisen from the underworld, which is quite a long translation for a single word, but we're just gonna let that slide. And Lugalira meaning mighty king. These names may be perhaps understood as titles of Nergal, who was the major Babylonian god of plague and pestilence, and also happened to be the king of the underworld. Although that is a bit confusing to me, because it's the sign of twins, and having it be just one person is just kind of weird, unless he's got 2 kind of sides to him, I guess. Anyways, How about we talk about my painting before the video ends in about 5 minutes? I chose a pink and purple colour palette for most of this, using my Van Gogh watercolours. The reason I chose purple was because a flower associated with the zodiac sign of Gemini, according to Pinterest at least, which may or may not be a trustworthy source, was lavender, which is a flower I like, so I chose to go with purple, regardless of whether or not it is really associated with Gemini. I just like lavender. Wait, didn't we already have lavender as a flower? Oh my gosh, we had that with the Aquarius fairy. I literally just remembered that. I used the lavender flowers to cover up the legs, which I regretted in the end, but wow, okay. Anyways, I went with purple instead of drawing the flowers in, because I didn't feel like lavender would make sense in the air unless they grew on clouds, which is weird. In the right-hand corner of the painting, I tried to paint the planet Mercury because it rules over Gemini. I gotta admit, these planets are causing me some issues, especially the ones that have like weird swirls and stuff. I kind of feel like maybe I should start a planetary series of paintings so I can figure out how best to paint different kinds of planets, because I kind of struggle a little bit with these planets. Anyways, the wings of the two fairies were supposed to resemble clouds a little bit because this is an air sign after all. I also wanted them to have clothes that would kind of accentuate the fact that this is an airy sign, I guess. And so I opted for cloth that was wrapped around their upper body and loosely wrapped around their arms, flowing back and forth in the wind that is up there above the clouds. The skirts are some poofy purple flowers, which I coloured in using my lavender colour, darkening it with some permanent blue violet for the shadows. Those are the two colours I remembered to write down. The others I don't know. I chose to make them fly arm in arm, as the two stick figures are very close to each other, and I kind of thought, that looks a little bit like they're dancing maybe. Now, in most depictions of Gemini that I have seen, the twins are in a sitting position. But I saw these two as sort of dancing instead. Well, it's kind of what I wanted to see, I suppose, but to me it just looked like that. As a result, the two fairies have a slight ballerina look to them, but that's mostly because of how I decided to draw the shoes and how I ended up positioning their feet based on the constellation. And I kind of feel like the left fairy's position is a little bit awkward, but that's mostly down to me trying to follow the constellation itself as a guideline. I also realised that these two are girls rather than being boys like the original story has them be, but I kind of just felt like making both my fairies girls with cute little space buns. And this time, instead of using metallic watercolours for the constellation, I decided to use my gold and silver inks instead, colouring the stars I had drawn on them in gold and connecting them with silver lines, getting the positions of the heads right in a way that I could draw the stars in the way I wanted, though. That was really difficult. Like, now they both have the stars on their cheeks, which is great for me, but I was really struggling to not get it, like, on top of the eyes or something. Really was trying to do that. I also added a bunch of silver stars at the top of a purple sky to give it a slightly more magical feel, I suppose. And there I also had a small little mishap with my silver ink, and it kind of dropped a big droplet of silver ink on my paper, and I just kind of had to try and wash that out, paint over it again, and start again, I suppose. In the end, though, it worked out. I've got pretty little stars in the sky, which I really, really like. I'm really happy with the way this painting is looking so far. Out of these zodiac fairies, like out of all of my zodiac fairies, I feel like these two are the cutest. I also gave them like tiny little hair clips in the shape of the glyph or symbol, I guess, that represents Gemini. So these two lines that have an arc on top and an arc on the bottom. I'll obviously put that glyph here if I remember to, so you guys know exactly what I mean. Now, it is time to take a look at the final result of this painting. Honestly, I love the pink and purple cotton candy look that this painting gives off. I really like it. Admittedly, I think that these two fairies, like I said, might just be my cutest zodiac fairies yet. Their space buns are adorable, and I love the clothing and the little dress, and despite the fact that my first try of getting this to look right failed, I love the way that my second try has turned out, and sometimes, you know, you have to try again and decide, okay, this painting is not turning out the way I want it to, let's put that away and start again. It's okay to start over, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm really glad that I did start over, that I didn't just give up. And I guess in a way I did give up on the first painting, but I didn't give up on the second one, even though I did still have a few little errors happening here and there, but in the end, I love it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Check out my social media links down below as well as my Twitch channel. I will link the Zodiac playlist down below and in the end card if you're interested in watching more of these videos. As for now, I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Bye! And now for the little reward that everyone who watches until the end of this video waits for. Here's some outtakes for you all. And this week I bring you a painting of two fairies that represent. This is a great start already. In the air, above the clouds, and that was a squeaky door. Thank you. And then their role as horseman and boxer also made them patrons of athletes and athletic competitions. So you all know who to pray to when you're going to the Olympics next time. That was stupid.